On August the 8th, 1962, Marilyn Monroe was laid to rest in the Westwood Memorial Cemetery in Westwood, California. Her death was ruled a probable suicide. Even in a suicide, there is an investigation. And when a person dies, whether suicide or natural causes, no one has the right to remove personal effects belonging to that person until it is fully determined how they died. For a period of 6 hours, as Marilyn Monroe lay dead in her bedroom at Fifth Helena Drive in Brentwood, California, people arrived at the residence, rifling through her personal files, removing documents and a wiretapping device. By the time the coroner arrived to remove the body of Marilyn Monroe, there was very little to investigate. It is unlikely they even dusted for fingerprints, much less collected evidence. When a homeless woman died mysteriously a few years ago in Los Angeles, an investigation into her death was conducted, and what was thought to be an overdose of pills and liquor turned out to be a murder. Marilyn Monroe was one of the most celebrated personalities of the 20th century, and she was never given a professional investigation into her death. The producers have written and produced Marilyn Monroe, An Act of Murder, in hopes that we might rally some interest in the cold case involving an actress who died mysteriously 44 years ago in her Brentwood, California home. The friend consoled Marilyn, holding her, telling her everything was going to be okay. The friend suggested the man who accompanied him fix a drink for Marilyn. As the friend held Marilyn, the man, a professional killer who accompanied him, slipped a sedative into her drink. The friend and the killer who were welcomed into Marilyn Monroe's home have come to commit an act of murder. As the friend was preparing to lay Marilyn on her bed, the killer entered the room and stripped her of her terry cloth robe. Although Marilyn Monroe was a little incoherent, she was sober enough to realize that she was being forced onto her bed by the friend and the killer. Marilyn tried to scream out. As a trusted friend held Marilyn Monroe, shoving her head into the pillow, the hired killer put on latex gloves. At 10:30 p.m. on August the 4th, 1962, Arthur Jacobs, the powerful public relations executive for 20th Century Fox, received a telephone call at the Hollywood Bowl while attending a Henry Mancini concert. An usher at the Hollywood Bowl guided Mr. Jacobs backstage to the manager's office, where he was informed by an unknown caller that Marilyn Monroe was dead. The presentation you have just seen is the way Marilyn Monroe died. The men who provided the final report into her death declared she died after consuming 47 Nebutol pills. Dr. Thomas Noguchi, the medical examiner who conducted the autopsy on Marilyn Monroe in 1962, reported there were no pills in the stomach cavity of Miss Monroe. And unless we forget, it was Dr. Thomas Noguchi who requested a second look at his original autopsy, only to discover her body tissues were missing. John Miner, the district attorney who witnessed the 1962 autopsy performed by Dr. Noguchi, now says Marilyn Monroe was murdered. If the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office breaks the seal on Marilyn Monroe's crypt at the Westwood Memorial Cemetery in Westwood, California, and obtains a hair and fingernail sample and has that hair and fingernail sample examined, they will find that Marilyn Monroe had a poison concoction in her body at time of her death. Over the past 40 years, authors and their publishers and producers of documentaries have added new twists that would either sell a book or keep you glued to the tube. Whatever their goal, it was to leave you with a mystery surrounding the screen star's death. We believe the mystery can be solved through tests conducted on hair and fingernail samples of Marilyn Monroe. One of the men from the district attorney's office in Los Angeles who participated in the 1982 reopening of the investigation into the death of Marilyn Monroe, has gone on record stating there was nothing sinister about her death. There are two recorded incidents that should have been thoroughly investigated. One was a telephone call to Arthur Jacobs, the powerful public relations man for 20th Century Fox. Let's not forget that Mr. Jacobs received a phone call at 10:30 p.m. at the Hollywood Bowl informing him that Marilyn Monroe was dead. Who called him? Why didn't Mr. Jacobs call the police upon hearing that Marilyn Monroe was dead? It would be 6 hours later before Sergeant Jack Clemens would arrive at Marilyn Monroe's residence and find her dead. The other incident that certainly has a sinister ring to it was a seizure of Marilyn Monroe's telephone records by the FBI in the early morning hours of August 5th, 1962. Who sent the FBI? What is really troubling in the death of Marilyn Monroe is the role the FBI played. If Marilyn Monroe committed suicide, why was the FBI involved? Jurisdiction over that kind of death would have been a case for the LAPD. Who gave the order to seize Marilyn Monroe's telephone records, and why? Why weren't the LA police notified? We now know that Marilyn Monroe knew one of her killers.